We are back on the record at 1:17 p.m. Please continue.
Okay. I just want to go back and ask a few follow-up questions about some of the events that we were talking about earlier. First, starting with convention. In your view, was attending convention useful for IFRs?
Oh,
Could you reread that, please?
In your view, was attending convention useful for IFRs?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I gather from our discussions earlier today that it was, in your view, useful for the IFRs to attend to meet other IFRs. Is that fair?
That is a reason,
Yeah.
an element, yes.
Yeah. And another reason would be that it's useful for IFRs to attend and meet LuLaRoe employees and staff. Is that fair?
I don't recall ever saying that.
Do you think that it's useful in that way?
I think it's always important to be aligned.
In your view, did LuLaRoe provide useful information at convention to IFRs?
Yes.
And that information was useful for IFRs to run their LuLaRoe businesses?
Yes.
Similarly, with the in-person training tours, do you believe LuLaRoe provided useful information to IFRs on those training tours?
Yes.
Okay. And then talking about the cruises, we were talking about a little bit about some of the meetings. Would LuLaRoe ever provide trainings on the cruises?
Could you repeat the question?
Has LuLaRoe ever provided trainings at the cruises?
What do you mean by trainings?
Well, has LuLaRoe provided information to IFRs to be useful in their business
On cruises?
on cruises?
We would have meetings on cruises. Sometimes speakers from stage. So, yes.
Going back to convention, we were talking about the fees that IFRs paid to attend convention. Were those fees collected by the event registration vendors that you mentioned this morning?
I don't recall if they were collected. Sometimes they may have been collected by the registration company. Other times it may have been collected by LuLaRoe.
Do you have any knowledge as to how LuLaRoe accounted for those fees?
No.
When LuLaRoe, let me step back. Do LuLaRoe employees attend convention?
What do you mean by attend convention?
Do any LuLaRoe employees ever attend convention?
Objection form.
As an attendee or working the event? What do you
Working the
mean?
event.
Yes.
Yes. When a LuLaRoe employee attends a convention, does LuLaRoe ever pay for their accommodations to stay near the convention?
It can at times, yes.
Does LuLaRoe ever provide a per diem or anything for the employee who is working the convention?
Yes.
Do you know how much that per diem is?
Can you pull out your phone from your pocket somewhere? Maybe you have interference.
My phone's down in my pants.
Yes, if you can pass the alternative.
It hasn't made any buzzes, movements, rings, or anything.
I can hear it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I'm not sure what he's hearing. It didn't make any noises.
I think we were talking about the per diem that employees receive. Do you know how much that per diem is?
I do not.
Okay. Do you know who Oliver Luckett is?
Yes.
And who is Oliver Luckett?
Oliver Luckett is a gentleman that wrote a book called The Social Organism, has extensive experience in Facebook and other social media.
Has he ever spoken in any LuLaRoe events?
Yes.
What events?
Oh man, he spoke at a leadership event. I want to say he spoke at Vision, but I don't remember if I'm confusing Vision or leadership. Vision meaning convention. And I believe he spoke at some of the tour stops. I don't remember how many or which ones.
Did you personally hear him speak in any of those events?
Yes, I'm not sure I heard the full duration, but I did hear him on stage.
Okay. Who arranged for him to speak?
What do you mean by that?
Well, let's back up. Whose idea was it for him to ask him to speak at LuLaRoe events?
I don't know.
Were you a part of that decision?
Possibly, I don't remember whose idea it was.
Do you recall when he first spoke at a LuLaRoe event?
I do not.
My understanding is that LuLaRoe holds weekly calls with IFRs. Are you familiar with those calls?
Yes.
Is the events team involved in putting on those calls at all?
No.
Is any other team that you have supervised in the past responsible for putting on those calls?
Yes.
Which teams?
I don't know the specific teams.
Are people that you supervised involved in putting those calls on?
Yes.
Okay, which people?
Jordan Brady. At times, Jason Shelton. Before Jason, Mikey Fettner. Before Mikey Fettner, Justin Segura. These are people from the video team.
Jason, Mikey, and Justin all on the video team? Okay. Anyone else?
Kenny was often involved, but I didn't supervise. Kenny didn't report to me.
Have you personally ever been involved in putting those weekly calls on?
Yes.
What was your involvement, or what has your involvement been?
When?
Over time, how have you been involved in those calls?
Letting people know that they were happening when I was involved with communications. Collaborating with Mark and Deanne and Kenny on what the content of those calls could contain, but not always. Sometimes spoke on those calls, or speak on those calls. Making sure that they happened at times. Sometimes providing a link for them. Often recording them. And putting them up online.
And why would you, sorry, strike that. When you were involved in recording those calls, where online would you put them?
They're on LuLaRoe.com.
So the public-facing website?
Yes.
So anyone can go view them?
Yes.
Does LuLaRoe put all of these calls on their website, or only some?
Some.
Do you know why LuLaRoe puts only some and not all?
Usually the recorded ones go online and the live ones do not.
How does LuLaRoe decide which ones will be recorded and which ones will be live?
That varies.
What are some factors that go into that decision?
Timing, travel, content.
Are you familiar with the Q Club?
Yes.
What is the Q Club? Or what was the Q Club?
I don't know.
What's your understanding of what the Q Club refers to?
Objection Foundation.
I'm not entirely sure.
Are you aware of calls the company would hold with potential IFRs called Q Club calls?
I believe we held calls for people in the queue, meaning that we're waiting to sign up.
So those were people who are waiting to sign up as an independent fashion retailer?
Yes.
Okay. Were you involved in those calls at all when they were happening?
Not as often. I don't recall if ever being involved.
Are you familiar with calls called the Train the Trainers calls or webinars?
Not entirely.
Have you ever been involved in those calls or webinars?
It's possible.
Are you familiar with calls called the Opportunity Call?
Yes.
What is your understanding of what the Opportunity Call is?
It is or was a call with people interested in being an independent fashion retailer.
And were you involved in setting up or planning for those calls in any way?
I don't remember.
Do you remember who was involved?
Kenny would have been involved.
Does the company still have opportunity calls?
Objection Foundation.
I don't know.
Have you ever attended or listened in on an opportunity call?
Yes.
How often have you done that? How many times?
I don't remember.
Was it a lot? A couple times?
I don't remember how many I've listened to.
Would it be more than 20?
I don't remember.
Do you know how the people who are interested in being an IFR are invited to attend those calls or listen to those calls?
I believe they would have been invited by a retailer.
Are they provided any documents or written materials either before or after the call?
I don't know.
going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the marketing team, which I think you oversaw at least until 2018. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you no longer oversee that team?
What do you mean by that?
Well, are you responsible for that team today?
I'm responsible for the look, vibe, and feel, which many of the team on marketing work on and support.
Let's see. Let's start here. Who currently is on the marketing team?
You want a list of everyone? All right, we've got Jordan Delgado. We've got Vanessa, Crystal, Christina, Michelle, Fab, Gladys, Jason, Tim, Grayson, Jason, Kat, Alexis, Justine, Pat, Jordan, Lauren, myself, is there anyone else? Tish, Caitlin, Val, Emily, Summer, I believe that's the current team.
I won't tell anyone if you left them out. So that was a long list of people. I think somewhere in the middle you said Lauren. Was that Lauren Simpson, who you currently report to?
Yeah.
So putting aside Lauren, does anyone on the current team report to you?
Does anyone on the current team report to me? Yes.
Is it the entire current team or portions of the current team?
What do you mean by report? What is your definition of that?
Well, in what ways do you report to Lauren?
In many ways.
So if you could provide the ways that you consider yourself reporting to Lauren.
Man, how long do you have?
I mean, just in the topics. You can go.
Projects, timelines, deliverables, ideation, collaboration, creation, schedules, personal schedule, vacation. Man, I could.
So let's do this. If you could go back to Exhibit 243. And look at, again, just paragraph 2 at the end. And this is a declaration, again, you signed, correct? So in this declaration, you said, I also manage and oversee approximately 30 LuLaRoe LLC employees on the events team, the design and graphics team, and the marketing team for the benefit of LLR Inc. So at this time, back in 2018, you managed and oversaw the marketing team, correct?
Yes.
It's no longer true that you manage and oversee the entire marketing team.
Objections to
Correct.
form compound.
What was that?
Is it no longer true that you manage and oversee the entire marketing team?
Same objection.
They don't report to me, all of them, if that's what you're asking.
Did they report to you back in 2018 when you signed this declaration?
Yes.
Okay. And now, at least a portion of the marketing team no longer report to you?
Yes.
Okay. But a portion does?
Yes.
Are there certain roles that report to you? For example, people who do certain things for the marketing team.
Yes, but the answer is, I'm trying to understand your question, because as far as reporting, are you asking, do they ask me if they need time off?
Well,
Do they come to me for...
So I'm talking about, you at one point testified under oath
Yeah.
that you manage and oversee the marketing team. You no longer manage and oversee the entire marketing team. I'm just trying to understand in what ways do you now only manage and oversee a portion of the marketing team, or do you not manage and oversee anyone in particular on the marketing team? I'm just trying to understand how that's changed over time. That's it.
I'm going to object to the question as being asked and answered and argumentative. The witness has indicated his problems with a particular term, and that's reporting.
So let's put reporting out of it. Back in 2018, you managed and oversaw the marketing team. You now say you no longer manage and oversee the entire marketing team, correct? Am I right about that? Okay, I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just trying to understand. I want to make sure we're on the same page. So, what portions of the marketing team, if any, do you currently oversee and manage?
As previously stated, I currently manage and oversee the social media team, but I'm still responsible for the look, the vibe, and feel of the brand. So photo, video, graphics, I still approve the content that those teams create, but as far as asking for days off, for vacations, they don't report to me for those things.
Got it, okay, I understand. And how many people are in the social media team that report to you? Roughly.
7?
And, does that include in the list that you named earlier?
Yes.
Okay. So at one point you were responsible for a larger team than you are now. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Why was there a change?
Objection, asked and answered.
Go ahead.
What was the question?
Why was there a change in how many people you're responsible for?
Just different areas of focus. Wanted to focus more on the social media presence of LuLaRoe, and with Lauren being on the team, there was another executive to share responsibility of leadership reporting.
Okay. So we'll talk about the social media team specifically in a little bit, but for right now I want to talk about the marketing team more broadly. Does that team have responsibilities with respect to LuLaRoe's website?
Yes.
What are those responsibilities?
Oh man. Responsible for updating, for photos, videos, design, layout, look, analytics, content, information.
Okay. Is the marketing team responsible for developing print materials regarding LuLaRoe?
Please reframe the question or restate it.
Is the marketing team responsible for developing print materials, so materials like hard copy paper materials for LuLaRoe?
Yes, they can be.
Okay. Would that include materials for events, like we were talking about, like agendas and that sort of thing?
It could, yes.
You've referred a few times to the look, vibe, and the feel of LuLaRoe. What do you mean when you say that?
I mean the way the brand is portrayed in graphics, photos, videos, feeling when you see an image, when you see a post on social media, when you see a video we create. Facebook, LuLaRoe's Facebook page, LuLaRoe's Instagram page, our website, our marketing assets, our photo shoots, our video shoots, our campaigns, our look at an event, meaning the branding at an event. When someone shows up at an event, what that looks like, what the graphic design of that event, the design of the materials, the design of the stage of the... there's lots of things that go into the look and the vibe and feel of a brand.
Would it be fair to say that it's everything that encompasses the visual part of the brand?
Except for the clothing, yes.
Except the clothing, okay. Do you know who developed the LuLaRoe logo?
Yes.
Who developed that?
Scott Wines.
Was Scott Wines a LuLaRoe employee?
No.
Was a vendor of LuLaRoe?
Subcontract. He was hired to design a logo for us.
Were you involved in that, or was that before you joined LuLaRoe?
That was I was very involved with that.
Who chose the colors of the logo?
When it's evolved.
Well, I guess when it was first developed.
When it was first developed, the colors, I don't know who chose the first colors.
Has LuLaRoe engaged in vendors or subcontractors to help with the logo as it's evolved?
I guess I should have asked a question previously. When you say logo, what are you referring to specifically?
Let me, why don't I'll come back to it once we have it in front of us. Does the marketing team ever conduct any brand analyses of the LuLaRoe brand?
What do you mean by that?
Does the LuLaRoe ever, sorry, strike that. Does the LuLaRoe marketing team ever try to analyze the strength of the LuLaRoe brand?
Objections to form.
Yes, we're always looking at the brand and how it can be improved.
How do you go about, okay, you can put that one aside. I wanted to switch gears and talk about the design and graphics team. That was also a team that you were responsible for managing and overseeing, at least back in 2018 when you signed your declaration, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you currently oversee that team?
What do you mean by oversee?
Again, in your declaration, you stated that you managed and oversaw that team back in 2018. Is that still the case?
Well, again, as we've discussed, things have changed since then, so it depends on what you mean by oversee. I'm still responsible for the look, the vibe, and the feel, which that team creates and does. Is that what you mean by oversee? I'm not following.
Again, I'm using your words from your declaration.
Right, but that was in 2018. You're asking currently.
And I'm asking, how has that changed? It sounds like it's changed.
Yes.
How has it changed?
So currently, some of those team members do not report to me. Mm-hmm. But as far as their vacation time, their days off, those things, but I'm very much involved with them in the look, the vibe, and the feel of the content they're creating.
Currently, how many people are in the design and graphics team?
Design and graphics team, there are 4. One of them I did not mention earlier because he predominantly doesn't do work with the marketing team, except for the events team.
So are some of the people on the design and graphics team also on the marketing team in that list that you provided earlier?
Yes, all of them.
Okay. Generally, what is the design and graphics team's role with LuLaRoe?
To design graphics for the brand.
For what sort of materials?
For website, for emails, for marketing campaigns, for social media content, for events, for any design graphic brand need.
Does the team provide any sort of design or graphic support for independent fashion retailers?
It can.
In what way?
If an independent fashion retailer was speaking at an event, they would likely handle or work with their the slide template, the graphic look and feel of those slides for their presentation. But it's about it to my knowledge.
Okay. So now let's talk about social media. That is a team that you are currently responsible for, correct?
Yes.
When did that first form as a team?
I don't remember.
I think you said that team was about seven or so people?
Currently, yes.
Okay. And what are the current responsibilities for that team?
Ideating, inspiration, research for post content, responsible for posting on our social platforms of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. They come up with captions for those posts. They reply to comments on those posts. They reply to direct messages on those platforms. They reply to messages on those platforms. They are involved with the planning out of when the things are being posted, scheduling those posts. Any and all responsibilities as far as social media goes, they work with me on, and they don't often create the content. They just schedule the content and or have ideas and inspiration for the content.
So let's talk specifically about specific platforms. What pages on Facebook are they responsible for? The LuLaRoe page.
What was the question?
So I'm talking about, let's just talk about Facebook. I just want to make sure I understand what pages, for lack of a better word, on Facebook they're responsible for. I'm assuming the LuLaRoe page. Is that right?
Yes.
Any other pages?
On Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Are they responsible for maintaining any groups on Facebook?
No.
Are you familiar with a group on Facebook called Skirt Associates?
Yes.
Does the social media team have any involvement in maintaining or posting in that group?
That group does not exist any longer.
Has it ever had a responsibility with respect to that group?
The social media team?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay. Does the social media team have any responsibilities for maintaining or posting the Facebook page for Deanne Brady?
No.
What about Mark?
What about Mark?
Any responsibilities for maintaining any Facebook page for him?
Mark who?
Mark's did them.
No.
Well, now let's talk about the Instagram page. Social media team is responsible for the LuLaRoe Instagram page content.
Yes.
Okay. Any other page on Instagram or account on Instagram?
No.
Does the social media team work with Deanne Brady's Instagram account in any way?
No, I don't believe so.
And then TikTok, is that an account for LuLaRoe?
Yes.
Okay. Any other accounts that the
Well-
social media maintains?
LuLaRoe has a TikTok account,
Mm-hmm.
if that's what you meant.
Yes. Any other accounts on TikTok that the social media team maintains?
No.
Okay.
You're asking for LuLaRoe, because I'm sure many of them have their own
Sure,
TikTok.
personal, but
Yeah.
as part of
Yeah.
the team for their responsibilities. Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
Is there any training on the use of social media provided to that social media team?
Yes.
What sort of trainings?
Trainers would be on the look, vibe, and feel, how to post things potentially, what our voice is and should be, topics of content. We'll often share different white pages or white papers from various marketing resources on social media and what that means, other social media experts.
One of the things you said is the voice. What did you mean by that?
Meaning when a caption is written, how does that sound?
Who decides on the voice for the social media team?
That's a collaborative effort.
Who's involved in that effort?
Myself. Are you asking now?
Mm-hmm.
Myself, Jordan Delgado, Crystal, Michelle. Yeah, it's probably the group.
Is there a particular person responsible for the LuLaRoe Facebook account?
Yes.
And who is that?
Other than myself?
Yes.
Gladys.
Okay. When Gladys is developing content to post on the Facebook page, do you approve that, or is she authorized to post on her own?
Now I authorize and approve, but she doesn't create content for
Okay,
Facebook,
and that's helpful. Who creates the content?
the marketing team.
So the marketing team creates the content, passes it to Gladys and yourself, and Gladys posts it. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Usually, yes. There have been times I've posted personally and not Gladys.
Is the social media team involved at all in providing social media training for IFRs?
Please repeat the question.
Is the social media team responsible or have any role in providing social media training for IFRs?
Responsible for in what way?
Well, has the social media team ever helped develop social media training?
Yes.
Who was involved in developing social media training from the team?
Christian Cannon. Myself. Man, some of the experiences we've had at Vision would have had social media training, and there was many people involved with those different experiences, depending on which one we're referencing.
For the ones that you personally were involved in, how were those trainings used, or where were they presented at?
vision, possibly on stage at a tour stop or leadership, possibly a home office call, or LuLaRoe show as we call it now.
Sorry, what do you call it now?
LuLaRoe show?
LuLaRoe show?
Yeah.
Those are what the calls
Home
are?
office update is now called the LuLaRoe show.
For the trainings that you were personally involved in, what sort of topics were covered on social media?
I don't remember.
Would they have included how to sell LuLaRoe clothing on social media?
I don't remember.
Would they have included how to build a team through using social media?
I don't remember.
Has LuLaRoe ever asked IFRs to provide trainings at LuLaRoe events regarding social media?
I'm unsure. Possibly.
Does the social media team at LuLaRoe monitor or follow any IFR social media accounts?
I don't know.
So you're currently involved, you're currently in charge of the social media team, correct?
Yes.
But you don't know whether they monitor or follow any IFR social media accounts?
I could go on and look.
So that's how you would find out, is you would go and look at the LuLaRoe accounts to see who they're following?
At the moment, yes.
Okay. Has LuLaRoe ever produced a podcast?
Yes.
Were you involved in that?
What do you mean?
In any way? Were you involved in the production of the podcast in any way?
Yeah.
Okay. In what ways?
Collaborating on the name, collaborating on what type of content could be shared and recorded, collaborating on the sharing of that content.
What was the name of the podcast?
Make Yourself.
When was it published?
I believe it started January of 2019.
And is it still ongoing?
Yes.
Was there any sort of podcast content before January of 2019?
What does that mean?
Has LuLaRoe ever done a podcast before January of 2019?
Like, meaning, has anyone from LuLaRoe been a guest on a podcast, or has
Has-
LuLaRoe ever produced a podcast?
Produced a podcast.
I don't believe so.
What types of topics are covered on the Make Yourself podcast?
They mostly interview entrepreneurs or people from business backgrounds to talk about business tips, business advice. They also, I believe, have interviewed people that have time management experience. Could be motivation and mindset. It ranges a number of different topics that would be of benefit and value to someone who's an entrepreneur.
Are IFRs ever interviewed or featured?
I don't remember.
Or how often is the podcast published?
Guesstimate, I believe, weekly, but I know they have had some hiatuses.
Who's responsible for the podcast?
Nikki Santiana.
What team is Nikki on?
She's on the communications team. Thank you.
And you've been handed what's been marked as exhibit, I think we're at 245, which for the record is base numbered LLR-WA 00024-276. I'll let you take a minute to review. Are you familiar with this document?
It looks familiar.
Okay. Just for the record, this is an email from you to a variety of people dated August 8th, 2014, and it's attaching what looks to be called LuLaRoe Business Overview 2014-0808, and then has an attachment that at the top says LuLaRoe Fashion Consultant Business Overview. You're familiar with the Fashion Consultant Business Overview document?
It looks familiar, yes.
Is this a document that you helped to create?
I don't remember.
Do you recall why you were circulating the new and revised business overview in August of 2014?
I believe it was because of the branding of it, having the logo and the squares and the name up top and the the coloring and the formatting of it.
So you were involved in that aspect of this document?
Yes.
Do you know who at LuLaRoe developed the content of the document?
I don't.
Okay. So let's look at the brand at the top. We were talking earlier about the logo
Yes.
and the colors of the logo. So we were talking about, and I'm trying to find in my notes. I believe you said that there was a subcontractor who helped to develop the logo.
He helped develop the squares.
The square. So that was the aspect of the logo he
Yes.
developed. Okay.
And you asked about the colors.
Yes.
Those colors existed prior to the squares being designed.
Okay. And who chose the colors?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I was not at LuLaRoe at the time.
Okay. Do you have any understanding of how this fashion consultant business overview document was used by LuLaRoe?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
I don't. Yeah.
Do you know whether it was given to prospective independent fashion retailers?
I don't.
You can put that one aside. And I think it's probably a good time for a quick break. Can you go off the
Yes, I
record?
could use the restroom.
We're going off the record at 2:17 p.m.